Meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Let's rise and
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Welcome. I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda. Would someone like to make that motion? Okay, Rich. And second?
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, Sarah. Anybody have any changes, additions, or comments on the agenda? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, everybody's good.
Unanimous.
Okay, public input and announcements. Do we have any public input?
Not in the room, and we have a small audience online too. Anybody online, chat if you want to talk.
Okay. So we won't discuss those comments. Okay, approval of the minutes from 4/16/25. Anybody want to make a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay.
Second.
Second. Anybody have any changes?
Just
Yep.
at the risk of vanity, it's my name is spelled wrong throughout the minutes.
Well, let's fix that,
Yes.
absolutely.
My father told us the clerks with the E's were the ones with money, or the other ones.
Oh, okay. I think I might have started that. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. All in favor? Okay, any opposed? Abstain? No. Okay. Okay, student board member, I don't see Bronson. Is
And I
if he
think we
shows
probably
up-
won't have Bronson, but we can, what you were just going to say.
Yeah, if he shows up, we'll give him a spot.
He has this race tonight.
Yeah.
He's performing.
Yeah, okay. All right, intervention update. I'm assuming that
is
might be
Deborah.
why Deborah Gardner-Bosch is here. Welcome, Deborah.
That's why I'm here. Thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about curriculum and all things literacy, talk a bit about some of our data and our elementary reading intervention, because I'm the coordinator for literacy and MTSS and the mentor coordinator. I'll spare you a mentor report. So I just wanted to start here by telling you why I picked the things to talk about. I want to make sure that I talk real briefly about the trajectory of the last 4 years or so with what we've been doing here in the district with literacy, and to share some updated data. And for those who are new to the board, make sure people understand a bit more about MTSS, what it is. It's a lovely title that nobody ever understands, and also give a little bit of an overview to the intervention team. And you could go forward twice. There you go. So I'm going to talk a little bit about where the changes in our literacy program started, and it was sort of in the 2021-22 school year. We had an opportunity to work with the Vermont AOE and the CCSSO, Council of Chief School Officers. There's another S in there. And it was an opportunity to work directly with reading researchers. So we had a small team of teachers who did that. We were quite successful that year, shared with other teachers. The next year we had more teachers who wanted to be involved with the program, and instead of working with Nell Duke, the next 2 years we worked with Dr. Sharon Walpole, who's out of the University of Delaware. And she is the author of the curriculum that we ended up first trying and then adopting bookworms. It ended up that there were so many folks from around the state that were involved in it that they, had to split and have 2 different groups. We were able to host people from all over the state at Clarendon, and we hosted again in January a team from Rutland Northeast. So one of the things that changed, if we look at the aims, is we had some new goals. And we had goals for pre-K that kids could reproduce most initial consonant sounds in text that they were generating that was personally meaningful. At the end of kindergarten, you could read and write CVC words, and then they started mostly being able to be on level for fluency. So as we went through this process, we ended up being able to take teams of teachers and administrators from here out to Oregon on part of the grant that we had through participating with this program. We were able to buy materials for pre-K teachers and really strengthen a bit of our connection there. And we were able then in 2023-24 to begin our implementation of the literacy program that we're working with now, which is a structured literacy program. Anyway, in addition to all of that, I think we're 2 up. In addition to all of that, there are teachers who work monthly in a curriculum work group, and we meet and they can review things, and able to get a lot of input from them. And I meet twice a month with my intervention team, so I get a lot of input from how things are going with teachers, and we can sort of share that conversation back and forth. So one of the things that you want to ask a question?
Well, yeah, I noticed that there were no teachers in the Wallingford Elementary group on that.
Yes, there isn't. This last year, we've had a lot of turnover with teachers at Wallingford, and we did not have a participant this year from Wallingford. Hopefully that will solve next year. I tried very hard.
Okay.
I tried to be very charming about it, but it didn't work. People have a lot on their plate, and we had a lot of new teachers.
And I think new teachers.
And when you're a new teacher and you're being asked to work in a curriculum sort of thing, it doesn't feel like the best use of your time necessarily.
I understand. I just was surprised to see that.
Yeah, that's only happened this year, that was really why. So we take a quick look at some of our fluency data. There's certainly still some room for improvement here, but you'll see that you won't be able to read on there, but I'll tell you, our 3rd grade students, we had 65% of them in the winter that were meeting or exceeding benchmarks. When you looked at 4th grade, it was 52%, and when you looked at our 6th graders, it was 43%. So what we're sort of seeing is that some of the kids who've had this longer in those younger years were doing better with it than some of our older kids who had not had exposure to this curriculum. And I think you have one more. Okay. Well, on that fluency data piece, I'm going to say one more thing about it. I looked at the 3rd grade data in particular, and if we take out the students in that cohort who are on IEPs for reading related things, we had 83% of our students who were meeting those fluency targets. And I thought that was an interesting bit. So then looking at the longitudinal data here. So this data is looking at the same cohort of students up through the grades. And the STAR reading assessment that we're looking at here only begins in 2nd grade. So our current 3rd grade students just have 2 years of data to look at there. So they've been staying in the mid-70s for their meeting their benchmark or above. If you look at our current 4th graders, Here you can see a little more data because you got 3 years of it. So in second grade, you had 63%. In third grade, 55%, and by fourth grade, we're at 73% of kids being able to meet, and that's all kids, being able to meet that benchmark over multiple years. And then we've got the same data for our sixth grade students. So that data reads 57% when they were in third grade, then 60% in fourth grade when that group was in fifth grade at 58, and this year at 69%. So, and that's district wide. So we are seeing some improvement in these other measures, which is helping us to feel good about what we're doing. If you look at this percentile rank for students, so this is all of our 4 schools here, and from 2 years ago to this year, we've had an overall improvement of 11 in our average percentile rank. You can see some of the schools improved up to 17 points on that percentile ranking. That was from 2 years ago to this year. And the other comparison is what has happened from last year to this year. And again, the average gain was 7 on the percentile rank in all schools, still showing improvement in year 2 of implementation. So, how literacy and connects to all of this is that, MTSS is one of those fun things. There's nothing that happens in a school system that really doesn't fall under MTSS, because it's working with both general ed and special ed, looking at preventing any academic, social, emotional, or behavioral difficulties, and then really looking at how you can improve learning for all students. And it has built into it wanting to provide more differentiation and intensified assessments, instruction, and interventions. And this, the goal of all of this is to make sure that all of our students can succeed. So that differentiated reading instruction is just baked right in to bookworms. It's part of what is in there, because it has 2 45-minute blocks. So it's got an ELA block, a little more writing in that block, and a reading block. So that's 90 minutes there. And it has another 45 minutes differentiated reading block that's baked right in K5. So our ELA intervention team has 5 people on it, but if you looked at full-time equivalents, it would be 4, which I'll explain in a minute. We have Mary Ellen Kafarsky at Clarendon, Mary Beth Monahan, who splits between Clarendon and Wallingford, Kathleen Harrington at Wallingford, Joan Latuca splitting between Teignmouth and Clarendon, and Julia Weinman between Shrewsbury, stays at Shrewsbury. So you see the reading times there. One of the changes, if we look at what has happened here with sort of movement in the program, and is that we've taken some intervention time and we are helping at the mountain schools with their shared reading block. Bookworms is a very intensive program. It's set up for each level. It's really difficult for the teachers that have the 2 grade levels, and we're providing another teacher to be teaching reading for that 45 minutes of intensive reading time that can be just targeted at that particular grade. So that's why I say if you added those 2 interventionists together, it's really like 4 interventionists, because they're being used for half of their time as like a reading teacher instead. And that's been a nice way that we've been able to really support bookworms. And Intervention team also does a lot of the assessing at the beginning of the year, helping teachers make sure that their literacy data sheets are updated, attending ESTs, which are the educational support teams, and doing a bit of literacy mentoring. One of the other really important things that we've been able to do over the years is also work on some systems improvement and look at things that would help support teachers. We started out targeting primarily K1-2 and K1-2-3. I took a quick poll of the students we've served so far this year, and you can see that the majority of them still have been down in K1-2. I also showed how many kids are exiting, because some of these are shorter term things, not a long-term intervention. The upper grades, that FC there is fluency and comprehension groups. So they're helping there when they have time by pulling a group of kids, usually who are reading a bit below where others in the class are, and being able to take that, work with that group for usually a 30-minute block of time. So when I say that they've been able to help with, the intervention team has been able to help with some of our systems work, I really want to acknowledge two of our interventionists in particular, Kathleen Harrington and Dr. Mary Beth Monahan, who have been fantastic in helping to come up with supports that are really for teachers. These are hard to see here, but they're things like, kicking off the school year, tips for teachers in October, things to make sure that you're thinking of and doing it. And they're really, because they're in classrooms, our intervention team work in classrooms across every school, and we meet together twice a month. We have a really good pulse on what's happening around the district, and we see lots of, we see classrooms in the same grade level in all 4 schools. So it's easy to see where somebody is doing something that someone else might benefit from seeing. Wow, that's a great idea, or a nice routine or system that they've set up. So all of these types of things, we're also changing. Our literacy data sheets are every year get updated because we try to make them collect data that's actionable for teachers and that's useful for us at a district. It has to be one or the other, either actionable for teachers or useful for us from a district that systems lens. And we're always revising other sorts of things that would help teachers have everything in one place. So when you go and you can see, like, the fall things are in green, they're all hyperlinked to what the benchmarks are and what you're giving and how you're putting them in. There's an information sheet at the beginning that has all of that information hyperlinked there. So we try to make it user-friendly for people. So I asked the intervention team what they've seen in changes just in the last 2 years with bookworms. So I'm just going to share a couple of quotes here and I will be done. This one is from Julia Wyman, who is our reading teacher and interventionist up in Shrewsbury and was also a kindergarten and first or second grade teacher at Clarendon for a while. Since the implementation of bookworms, it's been exciting to see our learners really take the time to intentionally use their knowledge of phonics to work through unknown words in a text, instead of making quick guesses using what they know about a word's initial sound, which was always one of the issues with our previous program that encouraged that. So as part of the bookworms curriculum, students are reading more challenging, sophisticated, and thought-provoking texts every single day. The amount of reading change in it is really vast. There is a palatable excitement around books in our building, and it's not unusual to hear students chatting in the hallway about the books they're reading in their classrooms. Our students' reading stamina, vocabulary development, and ability to have thoughtful discussions has dramatically increased much in part to bookworms. And it's sort of interesting even across schools at times when kids have been friends and get together, they're reading the same books and have been able to talk about them. Last quote I'm going to leave you with is from Dr. Mary Beth Monahan. Oops, I've got mine, so I can't read it. After 2 years of teaching bookworms and participating in various professional development and instructional coaching opportunities, teachers just know so much more about literacy development, milestones at each grade level, evidence-based practices for teaching reading and writing, and how to use assessments to guide instruction. The overall level of teacher knowledge and expertise has grown dramatically, and when teachers know better, they do better. More and more readers are meeting grade level benchmarks, and it's so gratifying to see how all the hard work is paying off and making a difference for learners. So, hopefully I've met my goals. We are able to talk a little bit about literacy, where it's gone, and share some data and give you a bit of insight into the intervention team. And I'm just going to leave you with one last thing. I am retiring this year. I have worked for this district since 1983, and that is a very long time. There have been so many changes here. I started back in the Henry Burnham era of teaching here. I've taught in all 5 schools. I've taught all 12 grades. I haven't taught preschool here, but I did student teach in preschool. I have been to well over 100 professional workshops over my time. I've completed 3 more degrees in the years I was here, a master's and then a doctorate in educational leadership. Know that I've done more than 42 extracurriculars because I've always done at least one a year, and even all the time I've been working in the central office, I've still been doing the Interact Club. But I love doing things like, chess. I taught 19 years at Wallingford Elementary, and they did things like run chess club and oral history club. Ran 10 years of an archaeology camp in the summer for the Hayes Foundation. So I've always done a lot of extra curricular things around too. I've had 12 different roles, lots of jobs, been done gifted, talented, and I've done a lot of different jobs over those years here too. And I tried to count up how many superintendents there have been. I think 7. But there have been 7 principals in this school alone in the last 10 years, or 12, 15 years maybe. Mm-hmm. So there's been an awful lot of change, but just hundreds of colleagues and students and community members over the years, and just want to thank those of you who are willing to keep working for this school district to make it a better place. And I want to honor all of the teachers and wonderful leadership team that we've had here over the years. It's been a privilege to work here, and I really appreciate the hard work that continues with the wonderful teachers that we have employed in the district here. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Deborah. Don't go, because there might be questions.
I'm not going to run off there.
Are you going to
There are
answer questions, or are you done? You're retired.
No. Questions are good.
One thing I do want to highlight, Deborah most recently has been involved very closely with this work, and as you see the progression of this work over the last 4 or 5 years, I think we start to understand how turning around test scores takes a decade. Deborah's got a heck of a lot of years doing this work, and we have a lot of educators who are involved in the work and participating and collaborating. When we have a lot of things all moving that same direction, it still takes a decade to change test scores. So the leading indicators that Deborah is showing us today, the lagging indicator is going to be what our state scores look like. So I think a huge kudos to Deborah and the work that she's done, and the educators who have been involved with it. But gosh, the things we see on the ground take a little while to translate into those high-stakes test scores. So I think just worth reminding folks of that, and thanking you for the work that you've done.
Okay.
I think I heard a hand up.
Josh has his hand up.
Okay, well, Rich, I'm going to let Rich go and then Josh next. Okay, Rich?
I was
Like
just
I have this.
thinking for the moment, take advantage of your experience here and just, I mean, I was just, as you were talking, I was looking up bookworm to see what this is here. And just, if, you know, on your way out, if you had to say, well, what one investment should we be making? Where should we be concentrating on to make those improvements? And I like we see the group that is meeting proficiency and exceeding. Thinking of the ones on the other side, how do we move that over in the best way?
I think that the continued support for intervention is really key to that. We have a team that's got some very highly skilled and experienced people on it. That makes a difference. Having really quality professional development where you really are learning and growing, it makes a huge difference. To this right now, our curriculum I think is more aligned than it ever has been in the 40s years I've been here. So keeping working on that part too, but. That intervention team has been really key, and the support that we've had, particularly from Jody and Brian to do this work has really made a difference, because we have had others who were afraid to move forward because they didn't know a lot about it, and were afraid to give the team who did know something the permission to do it. And that's really what we've had. That's made a difference. And Josh?
Josh?
Yeah, first, people that are on the board know that I do this every time. Like bookworms, and my daughter is in the 3rd grade cohort where they started as with Tabitha at Inmouth as one of the figureheads, and just how much. They're down reading books right now, and they read books every day now. And even my son, who's in kindergarten, he before bed sits and he reads books. And they enjoy it, and it's not suffering. And I know maybe there are exceptions or whatever, but they got those skill sets because of the Bookworms program, and the idea that very experienced teachers are still willing to be like, oh, here's a new program, let's try this out, makes such a huge difference. So I want to praise all the teachers that bought into that system too, because it's so hard, because
it is.
The system before it, the whole country got sold a bill of goods that was just wrong. And we just taught kids how to read incorrectly for a while, and this program was a big shift in that, and that was great to see. So that's my praise. And just I have 2 questions. One is, materials and everything that goes along with Bookworms. Are we still on the right trajectory of making sure that everybody has those materials still, and figuring out what the right stuff is to have for that?
So,
second question, it would be, there's not going to be if we're going to try to focus on math as well going into the future. I know there's not a big radical change, but is there kind of a guidepost or goals that have been set out for that? I know that wasn't part of your talk, but while you're here, I'm trying to steal some information.
Well, I did work with the math intervention program that we had here previously, and I would say one of my takeaways is that it does take a team, and that it is hard to do if you don't have a team, and it takes a while to build expertise within that team and then beyond. Oh, and as far as materials, there are still some classroom books and other things that are supportive that over time, hopefully we'll be able to add. We were sort of able to supply like the bare minimums and then the journals and things that the kids needed each day. We were not able to supply the suggested classroom library for everyone. So slowly over time, hopefully that'll be able to be built into a budget to do.
So has it been built into the budget for this next year? Do we know?
No,
No materials?
no new.
No additional.
Additional materials. It is built in for those, all of the journals and students.
Consumables?
Yeah, all the consumables, but not an expansion of a classroom library. Yes.
I had a question. I also have a third grade daughter at Wallingford.
Yay
and,
for third grade.
I know,
I
right?
taught third grade a long
So the
time.
data's awesome. It's doing great work. My only thought is that I feel like sometimes MTSS models tend to focus a lot on the low end and sort of allow the kids at the top end to just kind of continue to be good, do the right thing and test well. But how does this model push those kids harder? Is there
So
avenues for them to move up?
MTSS is for everybody as far as
Well, theoretically, yes.
intervention. As far as looking at a gifted talented program, we haven't had one here since I no longer was doing a gifted talented program here. But when we did, we had one person who was me working part-time trying to do something for all 5 schools because we were also doing something at the middle school. It's sort of a model for not being overly successful. And, that would be my one caution about the math intervention. You really need, teams are much more impactful and successful. I love the fact that all students are being exposed to grade level material now. And what used to happen is that many of our students who were at below grade level weren't exposed to books that were stretching up at the top level, and Bookworms is doing that. And just by the fact that you've got books that are more sophisticated, that have higher lexile levels, that have more sophisticated topics in them, that's helping to stretch that for all students. And I guess that's what I would say.
I maybe I misinterpreted what you just said. You said that all students are exposed to books at grade level?
Yes.
Students are not exposed to books above grade level?
Well, books above grade level, no, they're just in a stretch. The lexiles are like at a stretch. So
Right.
they have things that are at the top level of that sort of stretch band. Certainly students are exposed to having classroom books that are at all sorts of levels and free reading kinds of books. But in this differentiated reading block, if you've got students who are reading far above, then they're reading books that are far above level and discussing that in their fluency and comprehension groups. But they're not, the shared reading books that are for everybody are at grade level.
No, I understand that, yeah.
Yes, but, so the differentiated block is a place that you can get above grade level books in your fluency groups. And that is something also for looking at more classroom books to support exactly that. I don't want to take too much
David?
of your time here, but,
I missed a couple of acronyms there.
oh, we love our acronyms.
I haven't been involved in education for a while, so they're probably new. But what's MTSS?
So multi-tiered system of support. And Vermont wasn't happy with just that acronym. They had to add VT in front of it and then make the MTSS lowercase, just so that it's a little more complicated than a plain old MTSS. But the multi-tiered systems of support are just all those kinds of things that are helping, the behavioral, the academic, the social, emotional, as I was saying.
And what's ELA?
English language is the English language
Arts.
arts. I was going to say,
You know that.
yes, ELA.
Any others? Anybody else? Let's see if there.
Just happy retirement. Thank you.
Yeah, you'll love it.
It'll be an adjustment.
You'll make it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you, Deborah.
All right.
Thank you.
Kim, I think I saw you up there.
I'm here.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Kim Maneri is, what's your official title? Athletic director?
Middle school, high school athletic director.
All right. Well, welcome, Kim.
Thank you. So I shared with you an update, kind of short this time, spring season's like just in full swing now. So I just wanted to go over, you can see that we have 136 student athletes, 7 through 12 registered for spring sports. You can see it broken down into how many students attend Mill River. And then we have about 37% of our student body participating in spring sports this season. We have a varsity baseball team that we're currently in a co-op with MSJ, so our varsity players play at MSJ, and the JV team plays at Mill River. This is a 2-year agreement that we went into to sustain our baseball program and to help out and grow the program. And it gives the opportunity for a JV team. So we are hosting the JVs at Mill River, and then MSJ is having the varsity. Softball, we just have a varsity team this year. Middle school softball, we have a combined 7-8 team. Middle school baseball, we have a 7th grade team and an 8th grade team. Ultimate Frisbee, we have a JV team and a varsity team. And then middle school track and field, varsity track and field, and then unified basketball, which is a varsity team. Our unified basketball team just clinched the SBL co-championship today.
Oh, nice.
So
Awesome.
They finished 7-0 in the regular season, and playoffs will start next week. So we're hopeful for 2 home games here at Mill River. So that schedule will be posted hopefully by Saturday. We have some games left on this week with some other schools in the league. So just on there are some hyperlinks for information where you can find schedules and the website for the sports, and then just some facility projects that we've continued to do. The newest one added to that is the middle school gym floor has been replaced. It looks fantastic. If you've not seen it, stop by and take a look. And I do believe that we had gotten the approval from you to do the high school gym floor. So we're in the works with Danaher to secure a date, because that's about a 10 to 12 week project. So we are trying to finalize the best time to start that, obviously with school's out, summertime. Not this summer, but it would be the following summer. And then just quick with elementary, this is the second year that we've offered spring sports. We have, if I can do math real quick, 41 softball players, 3 through 6. So we have 3 softball teams, and it's a mixture of 3 through 6, so 3 different teams for that. We have a 3-4 baseball team and 1-5-6 baseball team. This is always tricky in the spring now, especially because we have some more teams participating at Mill River with field space. So we've really tried to have all the elementary teams practice at Mill River and play games at Mill River. We've been working on the middle school fields to make them playable. Wallingford Rec has been generous enough to let us use their fields for a couple games, but the majority of our games are at Mill River for elementary, and they will be played on the varsity softball field, and if not on that field, the middle school softball field. Those are the same size for softball and baseball at the elementary level that they play on. So it's always a struggle. I know I had some upset people today because I canceled games. Middle school games, our fields were underwater, and to play games and make the fields more unplayable is not something that I am willing to do. So I had some upset coaches at me, but in the end, it's my decision to make for what's safest for our athletes and make the facilities playable. This week has just been unimaginable for athletic directors because we've had to reschedule pretty much every day. And if you know anything about athletics and high school athletics right now, umpires and officials are few and far between to secure, especially at the varsity level. So scheduling middle school games and rescheduling those, it's a shot in the dark if we're going to get an umpire for this rescheduled game. But it is what it is. This is what happens in the spring. So that's where we're at with spring sports. And then I just want to leave you with Mackenzie Blanda, who has been doing our district AD elementary level, will be leaving. She was offered the Proctor AD position, and she will also be teaching PE there. So that position as an elementary AD will be open. And she has done some amazing work in the 2 years, and she has really grown. So I'm excited for her to be at a high school level and see where she goes.
Okay, thank you,
If there are
Kim.
any questions, I can answer those.
Anybody have any questions for Kim?
I have a question,
Yeah, go.
because I've been out of education for a while. Could you define what middle school is, and where is the middle school gym?
Oh, okay.
So MS is middle school, which is 7th and 8th grade. And at Mill River, we have 2 gyms. We have a high school gym, which is named after Dean Houghton. And then we have the Joan Holden gym, which is our middle school gym. Which if maybe after the meeting, someone could walk you down and show you. It's right off the cafeteria.
Yep, we can do that. All right, Kim, I had a question. I know, I live right by the Chip and Hook ball fields, and so I know that the Rutland County, I guess it's Rutland County Little League.
Yeah. Yep.
Are kids playing in, when you talk about the 5th and 6th grade baseball, 3rd and 4th grade baseball, are kids playing in the Rutland County and school sports, or are these separate?
They're 2 separate, and one of the main reasons we started spring sports last year was getting pushed from parents because the prices of Rutland County Little League were increasing. You have to pay to play in that league.
Okay.
So this is an option for school-based sports. So there are still students in the district that play for Rutland Little League. And you'll see, Wallingford, I believe Clarendon now, and I think the Chip and Hook fields, Rutland Little League puts money into all of those fields to redo them so that they have first dibs to play on them. So, yeah, they have to pay to play, and the elementary students have the option to either play for Rutland County Little League or to play on a school team.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And, I guess I have the most questions then. I was wondering about, what is it, disc golf?
Ultimate Frisbee.
Ultimate Frisbee, where do they go for that?
So they play on our soccer football field.
Oh,
And we make a field within that for them. And they're doing exceptionally well this year. They, I believe, are 2-1. Either 2-1 or 3-1. And we have, like you just saw the numbers, 27 students. So we're able to have a JV program. And there are other schools that have JV teams, so we try to play the games at the same time if we can. But it's really an ideal sport. You don't pay for officials or umpires. The students officiate the game, and Ultimate Frisbee is the spirit of the game. So it's very it's rewarding, but it's also like curiously to watch these kids because some who have never played before get so competitive and kind of heated in the moment, and it's funny to see Emma Weatherhog and Lee Squire just kind of remind them what Ultimate Frisbee is about and how it is, for the spirit of the game, and you have to come together and you have to problem solve. It's also a sport where a lot of students don't necessarily play another sport, and this is something they come out and do and have a great time at. So again, check the calendar out and stop by for a game out back. They're 90 minutes long and they won't go over that, but they could end before that, so.
Great.
I have a question.
Yep, Dave?
On the participation percentage, does that vary a lot from season to season? And the second question would be, how does that compare to what other schools have for participation percentage?
So, Brian can remind me too, I think we've stayed pretty close to 33 to I think 42% was our highest. So we stayed between that percentage of students participating in athletics. I am not sure about other schools and their participation rates. I do know that for students who participate in athletics, it's very similar to our students who also participate in the arts and music. We have a lot of crossover between the arts and music and athletics. I believe Chris and Simonetti and I figured it out one year, and it was almost close to like 50% of the kids are doing, both. It's hard to know about other schools because of the school size. We're really considered a D3 school now with our numbers. So I would say 37 is a pretty good percentage for a population of what we have.
Yeah, and my recollection is similar to yours, Kim. I think a couple years back, we were looking at a lot of low 30s numbers, 33 or 34, and lately we've been seeing, that one time above 40 and staying to the high 30s. I think it's awesome to see that the athletics program is taking feedback from the community. That example of Little League costing so much, why don't we start offering that ourselves? I mean, that's a recent development in the last handful of years. And that's supporting our numbers. Ultimate Frisbee, how many years has that been, Kim? 3 or 4?
I think it's actually 5, but I think the COVID year, we didn't have a season, so 4 plenty.
And now seeing Ultimate Frisbee have a varsity and a JV team, I think a testament to the athletics department really thinking about how do we, as our student population is smaller every year, how do we keep growing participation and how do we keep trying to serve our community? Kim's done a great job of growing our programs in that way. And Mackenzie, too. We'll be sad to see her go.
And I will just add that middle school track and field, and high school track and field, we do have students who attend from MSJ and participate. They are an MSJ team, but they are with our team every day practicing. So there's about 14 or 15 MSJ students that also come to our school and do that every day.
And it would be easier for us to go, gosh, we can't field the team, oh well, but to work with our neighbors and try and put a team together, I think shows how people approach the work.
I had a question. Is there any cost for participating in the sports? I mean, I know that they're covered by the school, but like for uniforms or equipment, does the school pay for that?
You can't pay to play in Vermont, so it's all school.
So it's all provided by the school?
Correct.
Okay.
But does the Booster Club support that, Kim?
So the coaches can make requests to the Booster Club for items that they may need that I can't support with the operating budget.
Right.
And so that's how they reach out, and that's how the Booster Club helps spend their money that way. And then some teams have friends of, like there's a Friends of Football, there's the Friends of Wrestling. They do fundraising to raise money for their own teams to provide items that they may need.
Okay.
I had a question as well. Transportation for elementary school kids who are at one of the, Clarendon, Wallingford, Shrewsbury, or Tinmouth. If a team is practicing at, let's say, Clarendon at 3 o'clock, how are we gonna get kids there? I know for my family, that's been a challenge. And I know that busing is a perennial challenge for Mill River, but I feel like that's something maybe as we grow these programs, we could explore.
I think it's something to look at, but we don't even have the drivers to drive our high school and middle school teams right now, and 3 o'clock time is when dismissal is, so we have 0 drivers available, and that's why you get the obnoxious phone calls for consolidated routes all the time, because there's probably a game that day and the driver has to drive a team. I would say in a perfect world, that would be 100% something that we could do, but if we don't get any more bus drivers, we're gonna have a hard time busing just our regular kids to school. Mind you, athletic programs or music events after school. And that's something that I believe every school is struggling with, transportation, whether it be for athletics or for school. So that's, for elementary, we really try to tell them practices can't happen until after 5 o'clock or after 4:30 to try to alleviate some of that stress for parents to get their kids from either an after-school program or carpooling with somebody else. Back when I played sports and went to Mill River, every elementary school had their own sports team, so it was easy to just walk out the door and go to practice. But unfortunately, with the districts and doing a district-wide elementary program, it's not how it's working. But it's definitely something that can be looked at, and I know I've had conversations with our transportation coordinator about it, and it really just comes down to drivers and having, those extra hands to help out.
Anybody else have any questions for Kim? All right, thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you,
Thank
Kim.
you.
Drivers education contract, is that you?
Yep. So I would ask the board, we would recommend to the board accepting a services agreement with All-State Driving Instruction LLC. So if somebody would want to make the motion for purposes of discussion.
So moved.
Okay, Rich made, second? Ned? Okay.
So we have advertised again this year for a driver's ed teacher and been unsuccessful. We had really 2 individuals, one that we had tried to work with before, and we struggled to get a contract together to do that work, and another individual who was just not licensed at all. So for that person with no license whatsoever to try and jump through the hurdles to get the licensure needed, that would be really, really hard for us to do. If we were hiring for math and we had a person we could get on a math provisional license, yeah, we'd explore hiring them. But to do that for driver's ed with the driving element and the classroom element, that's challenging at this point in the year. So, gosh, we had that posted for a full 2 months, and we had the 2 applicants. We work with the union to get permission to hire non-union personnel to cover these responsibilities, because otherwise this would be a union position, union-eligible position. The union has signed off on us contracting with Allstate for another year. Now, what we would do as part of that agreement would be to advertise again during, peak hiring season, and keep it open for a full 2 months and explore any viable applicants. Everybody wants to hire somebody in-house. There's nobody's pushing for it to be contracted out. But absent somebody who can actually do the job, we do have a requirement to offer this. If we were to not offer it, we would be pledging our dollars towards vouchers that could go anywhere and could get a lot more expensive and not be as steady a cost. So that could fluctuate a lot more. So I think the administrative overhead of trying to deal with vouchers gives us a really strong reason to go with contracted services versus vouchers. So could cost more and have our people working more to do a voucher system. We went with Allstate last year, and it's gone well. They've served our needs well. Folks like the instructors, and they have the capacity to do what we need them to do. So any questions, Rich?
Upon what is the projected 40 to 60? Is that the class size, or have you surveyed students?
So, yeah, the 60 is the most that we think we would need to work in a regular year to keep up with. And if you look at our class sizes, you know, if you think about every maybe sophomore class, just to ballpark, let's pretend that your sophomores were all the ones that were going to be eligible to get their licenses at the same time. 60 kids is about a class size for
Okay.
us. So that capacity is reasonable for us getting what we need. Some of those spots occur in the summer, some of those spots occur during the year, so there's some flexibility for what suits people's schedules. And the ones during the year are during the school day, which I think is important to offer for some students to be able to access. Another problem with vouchers is you have to find your own time, and you wonder about equity of students being able to access. The minimum of 40 has to do with them projecting if they're actually able to enter into a contract and not end up underwater.
Right.
So if they're pledging personnel to us, and if we say, we only have 10 kids, they go, well, we can't.
That's what I understand that, but I was that's why I was asking about the numbers, because if in fact we only have 10 kids, then it might be worth paying a higher per kid price with the vouchers.
Great thinking. We did not have a problem with the minimum.
Okay.
The minimum was not triggered.
Sweet, okay.
Yeah.
That's where I was
No,
going. Thank you.
we were doing pretty well, staying right in between 40 and 60.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Great.
Are
Len?
kids required to take driver's ed, or if their parents want to teach them?
No, they're not
Ready a year
required.
earlier or something?
We are required to offer it.
To every
they're-
kid?
Yeah.
The
They're
thing
not
about,
necessarily, required to take it.
yeah, I was going to
If
say,
you wanna
the
get a
thing about
junior
driver's ed is,
license, you have to have driver's ed.
Okay.
So
is
that's
that
the
if-
push.
if your child has driver's ed, your insurance is not as much, and they get I forget. There's a whole bunch of reasons.
There's incentives.
Yes.
You also have to wait longer to go for your license.
Oh, okay, yeah,
If you do not, okay.
right.
And my son just finished with the contract at Allstate, and it was a great experience, and he got his license.
Oh,
All right, yay.
Good story.
Good
So
for you
be
all.
careful on the road if you see Forrest. Drive.
Okay, anybody else have any?
Len, I think.
Len?
Yeah, just a
Oh, yeah, see.
question or two. What, are we doing anything with the driver's ed car?
Yeah, we actually are planning to get rid of it. We had, last year, we had the conversation of, well, it's right on the cusp of, could we make it another year or not? So we hedged our bets and we said, we're going to keep it. We're going to see how Allstate goes. We're going to try and hire again. And if 2 years in a row we're contracting, yeah, we're getting rid of it. We didn't want to turn around and have to budget for a brand-new vehicle this year, which is what we would have had to have done if we got rid of it last year. So we have driven it, every couple of weeks we'll drive it around the block. We did get it inspected and looked at. And now that we know that we can't hire, we're going to turn around and get rid of it. So great question. That was a year for us where we wanted to keep it a question mark and not jump too fast to do anything that might not work out in the long run.
Does that have the passenger side brake?
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I was wondering. The other thing, just in terms of doing driver's ed, I think it's important, having driven with a couple of older kids, like 18 and 22, and they had to wait, even though they're of age, but they had to wait like 3 to 4 weeks in order to schedule an appointment to get their license itself. But my other question is, are these instructors able to give the driver test? Because I know Mike Pluta was qualified to
Yep.
actually give the test in the driver's ed car.
I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe that they offer that, but you would have to go out and do that on your own, and I think they charge a nominal fee for that. So I think they will do that if requested, but then that's a private thing that they arrange outside of school that,
So they don't have to go to DMV to take their test, if they arrange that?
I don't, Len, can you explain how that works? I don't know exactly how that works.
No, they
Say that
don't.
again.
How does that work if they do the driving test with the instructor? Do you not have to go to the DMV?
The driving instructor had, like Mike Pluta had to go through a program
Yeah.
so that he was certified in order to give the license test.
Do they just do the test here and then give them paperwork, or do they have to go to the DMV with them? Do you know that one?
They do the test there, then they pass them, and then the student needs to take the paperwork up to DMV.
Got it,
And they just process it.
got it. So it's little lower stakes because you can do it here with the person you've been driving.
And in a
with.
vehicle you're familiar with?
Yeah, so.
Yeah, that was the biggest advantage of it, was you're driving with the same person you've been driving with.
Yeah.
You've got the same car.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
And so the advantage was in your favor in terms of taking the test, so.
Okay,
Great.
anybody else? All right, all in favor of entering an agreement? Anybody opposed? Okay,
And that's a note for Finance Committee to think about next year, looking at transportation budget and thinking about buses and vehicles, because we are going to get rid of that. And we aren't necessarily going to be contracting these services out forever. So that's something just to keep in mind.
I'm sorry, just one more thing. We used to be able to get them from the car dealers. They would literally let us use their vehicle because it was free advertisement for them.
Oh, interesting.
In terms of, we used to have two. We had a standard and an automatic from up on Route 7 heading north. It's not there anymore. But anyways, my point is that they would actually give us their cars. I taught one class, and we actually, outside of Mill River, and we actually got a car from, at the time, it was Smith Buick. So I don't know how that works anymore, obviously, but.
Worth exploring, though.
yeah, or just even a lease seems like it might be.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
there's not going to be
We-
huge mileage, I would assume, on the car.
Yeah, we did, there were years where we leased them, there were years they gave them to us. I mean, as I say, at one point, they were giving us 2 cars a year.
Right on.
Okay.
I don't think there's too many freebies in there.
Yeah, I
maybe
know,
not.
I'm a
But
little
You can
skeptical.
lease them.
Hey, we can always ask.
Whether it's
No-
cheaper to lease them or have your own like Mill Riverston, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Oh. No is the worst they can say if we ask, so we'll explore all those things.
Okay. All right, next on the agenda is the stormwater project bids. Who's going to speak to
I
that?
can talk a little bit about this, and then maybe B&G folks can chime in.
Okay.
So if we can get a motion to,
Well, let's-
to,
So let me just, maybe Josh, you want to explain what this is about a
well,
little bit
I'm just
before?
thinking do that under
We can make the
discussion.
motion and then we
Yeah.
can.
Okay, well, I don't know what's the motion then?
motion to approve the payment of $61,902.78 out of the building fund for this project.
For this project.
Mark
Okay,
out.
Ned moved,
Yep.
and second, Ned made the motion, who's the second? Oh, Rich is second. Okay, now we can talk about it.
Okay. Josh, do you want to? I don't mind.
You can talk about it.
Okay. So there is this wonderful, wonderful requirement from the state that we refer to as the 3-acre site requirements. So because of the impermeable surfaces at Mill River High School, so the parking lot that is paved. Because of the size of our site and the size of the impermeable surfaces at our site, we have to do some work to be in compliance with these 3-acre site requirements. There is a grant working with the state to do this work because this is a really large project. And they understand that in telling all these folks that they need to take on these projects, that there needs to be some funding available. So the state has set aside some funding. The state has contracted with Greenprint Partners. So this is a little interesting arrangement because it's not actually us contracting with somebody. The state has contracted with Greenprint Partners. Greenprint Partners put all of this, they came and they did the site surveys, they did the engineering, coordinated all of that, and drew up plans. They put it out to bid. So their engineer estimate is a cost that's on there, and then you'll see 2 folks who bid on that project. So Greenprint is going to be using Markowski Excavating to do this work. Now, what does this work look like? It's going to be basically a system of baffles that are built into the, if you're walking out towards the fields and you slope down that hill there right before our bleachers, they're going to be doing work so that as water runs off into our field there, it is captured and works through in a way that anything that gets out to the other end is clean enough and not problematic to go into Otter Creek and eventually make it into Champlain, if that makes sense. So our cost of the project is 10%. That's the way the grant is built, so that they are covering 90%, we're covering 10%. So that's the reason the motion was to approve the payment for the project. We're not contracting with anybody, but we do need to make the payment of the 10%. Questions on that? Rich?
I have a question.
Sarah?
Well, we were just talking about fields
Yep.
being underwater.
Yeah.
Will this make that problem better,
I
worse,
don't-
or not change it?
I don't know that it'll necessarily have any impact on that.
That's too bad.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Maybe they could,
Yeah.
change it a little bit so they. Drain
My
the
understanding
fields.
is it's mainly about treating the water.
Understood.
So, yeah, unfortunately, I don't think that'll help there. Rich?
So just, I trust that these
Yeah.
people know what they're doing.
Sure.
That's a huge difference between Hunter and Markowski. I'm
Yeah.
just
Yep.
looking at the,
Oh, yeah.
it's a
Oh, yeah.
40%, 7%
Oh, yeah.
difference. But is the choice that they've gone with
Yep.
to address stormwater as we're experiencing it today, or stormwater as we're going to experience it within the next 10 years?
That's a really good question, and I don't know. And I don't know that any of us know that here internally. This has really been their project and their funding.
But the state
Yeah.
has an oversight? Okay.
Yeah, and what they've done is they've selected Greenprint Partners to make sure that the project is done in a way that we're in compliance with the requirements. So, we'll see how that goes. Yeah. Yeah.
Will this happen during the summer?
Good question. I believe at this point in time, there's no way we could get this started sooner than summer.
It might be worth also looking at
Yeah.
how this will impact access to the bleachers and access to the field. Because
Yep.
right now it's pretty casual,
Yep.
and I don't know if they're gonna put
Yep.
in some sort of like baffling
Yep.
or water diversion
Yep.
things, how that's gonna affect
You know,
access to the fields.
At the point where we updated those bleachers, Tim and Kim were looking at all of the plans and having discussions with them, and we put the bleachers where we put them, knowing that this project, that's how long this has been in the works. This has been really about a 2-year planning to get to today. The kind of crazy thing is, if we said, because Tim and I had some of these conversations, what if they tell us that we have to do all this crazy work and we don't want to do all this crazy work? We go, well, we need to be in compliance, so we don't really have a choice. And that's an interesting place to be. If we were to say, you know what, actually, we don't think we like this. The funding's not going to be there next time around if we do want to do something, and we still need to be in compliance with it at some point in time. And that, that's not a bet that I am willing to take, that this maybe goes away or changes, or we could do it in a better, different way. That makes me pretty uncomfortable.
David?
Does 61,000 put this to bed permanently?
It should satisfy the requirements as they stand today.
Does this include paving?
I do not believe the project includes paving.
So we're still going to have to fund paving since we have sinkholes and,
Well, those are projects that we're taking care of with our regular maintenance funds. Those are not gigantic projects, cost-wise. They're projects. But no, this does not do anything with our paving. We were actually wondering, were they going to tell us that we had to do something? Because we paused on touching our parking lot till we knew what this was going to look like. Because if they told us something like, actually, you need to rip up half your parking lot, we didn't know. But what they're doing is going to address things in a way that we don't have to reconfigure our parking lot.
Have you paid anything previously for engineering or anything? This is a
Not on this
one-shot
project.
deal.
Yeah, this project has been, there's been no cost to us up until the final project here that we need to contribute the 10%. Yeah, Sarah?
So I know we have to do the project, but
No, we don't have to, but
have you,
we probably should.
I mean, it needs to be done.
I hear you.
But have you actually looked like on impacts of layout and game fields and seating? Do you see any like red flags that maybe the project could just be adjusted, is what I'm saying, if needed?
There was nothing that Kim and Tim saw when they were working with the engineers, except pointing out our wellhead, and they did do some reconfiguring, readjusting.
Okay, so they've had
yeah.
stakeholders involved in that.
They didn't just come out and look and give us a plan.
Okay.
There was a revision of the plan after we,
Okay.
Yep. Good question.
Josh,
question.
did you want to say something?
Oh, I just wanted to reinforce the point that it was 2 years of this,
Oh, yeah.
and we were already out of compliance before this process started.
Yep.
So this is them, we're actually catching up on a project that should have been done previously. And it is, and then my other point was, the reason why we haven't been paving, is this conversation actually started by a board member like 3 years ago being like, we need to repave Mill River.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, actually, we don't know what it turns out we're out of compliance with this thing. We need to have that done before we can even think about what we're gonna do for paving.
And the estimate has gone up quite a bit
Yes, it has.
over the couple of years,
Yes, it
too.
has.
It's
And
like
to the
double.
point of the Hunter, the excavating, it might be a job that they didn't want.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, fair.
What's happening at the elementary schools?
They do not trigger this in a way that we have to work to be in compliance. Good question. Yeah, there's not another one coming down the pike.
Okay, any other questions or input on this? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, anybody opposed? No?
Thank you, everybody. Great.
That's a vote in favor for me.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, board goals review.
I'll throw those up on the screen just if
Yes,
that's
okay,
helpful.
I probably should be somewhat more involved in this.
If I can find my tab, come on, where'd it go? There it is. Okay. A little bigger. So we had gotten into a pattern of trying to review these quarterly. So go back 2 years, 2 summers. Go back 2 summers and we did a pretty big overhaul of goals. We had a retreat. We pulled in a lot of information from a couple of different sources to try and inform those goals. We, worked to draft them over a couple of sessions and had a conversation around quarterly checking in on these. And then this past summer, we looked back at them and revised them. We did not make a lot of changes. And then this year, we recommitted to trying to look at these again quarterly. As we had a couple of new board members and we knew they were coming up, we bumped this a little later in the year than we normally would do it because we felt it would be of benefit for new folks, especially thinking about going into a retreat maybe in June. Gosh, thinking about these now so that you can come into the retreat having seen them seemed to be a really good idea. We had a lot of conversations around what makes a goal an appropriate goal, and something we talked a lot about was a goal needed to be something that was within your realm of control. So if the board were to set a goal that math scores were going to go up 3% every year, we would ask the question, how is the board going to do that? So using that sort of litmus test of, is this a board goal or not? Is this a board goal or a teacher goal? Is this a board goal or a principal goal? We landed on these categories: student-focused, support staff, engage the community, and then safe and orderly facilities. So those 4 big buckets were places where the board felt that it was their role. And then we had some items under each of those 4 categories where we were going to work to do that. So my recommendation would be that at the board retreat, you look at these and do a self-assessment and really talk about, and actually, in fact, didn't we do that last summer? We did a self-assessment. I think we rated how we thought we did on these. So tonight might be a good place just to look at these. And maybe new folks, if you're reading something and you're going, well, what does that actually mean? Let's have those conversations. And then we'll do some self-assessment at the retreat and then revise goals as needed at that point too. Is that reasonable to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, I do think that the first goal, originally there was some sort of a percentage or measurement. Is that
Yeah, if
right?
you go back far enough, the board goals really did look like things like staff attendance will be X, You go, well, wow, how is the board affecting staff attendance? Student assessment scores were part of that. We looked at actually something out of the youth risk behavior survey data. We were setting goals around that, that students were going to feel connected to an adult in the building. So we had some really specific kind of micro, in the weeds goals before we transitioned to this. Rich?
So Brian,
Like 5 or 6 pages.
It was really long. Yeah.
Very
Very.
long.
Yeah.
And I think part of the idea too of this is like, especially because we are a very different board than when we came up with this template as well, was like one of the ideas was like the 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe those are always true, and then the stuff that's under them is where we can really change. And not to be said that we can't change what the wording or what those numbers are in the future, like at a retreat.
And I think and I know, Rich, you got a thought. I think there's value in focus, because if every year or 2 your goals change, then you're never focusing and you're never making progress. And I think there's also something to say about having only a handful, because if we have 10 goals, but we keep them for 10 years, did we actually have focus? Having 4 goals and keeping them consistent, I think, strikes that balance of comprehensive but focused. Rich, sorry.
I guess, so you said that these were generated
Yep.
2 or 3 years ago. Or,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering what if we're going to meet in the retreat and
Yep.
revise and refocus on
Yep.
the goals, at what process are we assessing the goals? Where's the accountability come in?
Yeah, it's really this group holding themselves accountable, actually, because if you look at some of these goals, they're not very measurable.
I've seen
So when we did this last summer, it was really, how do you feel on a scale of 1 to 5? Do you believe we've met this goal? So
Right.
not ideal in that they're not very measurable.
You know, and I understand that a 5-page document's
Yeah.
going to be,
Yeah.
but I'm also thinking about just the specificity
Yeah.
of a goal, just to,
And I think, for example, working to support staff through recognition and appreciation, you know, we did have some conversations about how specific do we want to get. If you get really specific, you have to do it.
Yeah.
If you don't get specific, then it's, well, yeah, we did that. So, you know, item D, we will do X during Teacher Appreciation Week. That can become something that's measurable, you know, and I think something too, we had a newsletter on here. I think we took the newsletter off, but board communication, we could be real specific and say, we will have a quarterly newsletter that addresses these items through the year. So I agree with you, Rich, that moving towards something that's more measurable and specific as those bullet points under would make for better goals. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's doable.
Yeah.
So are you saying, though, that under our goals, we shouldn't have, like, for the upcoming year, for instance, I mean, there's some big policy goals the board has set out on, and also, like, obviously, attendance is a huge problem throughout the school district. You don't think it's a good idea to have topical, timely goals, you know, to try to address this issue? Because that may not be, it's not vague.
So but let's take the example of attendance.
Yeah, to say that, good, so the board shall make a policy to try to improve attendance.
Awesome. Continuously reviewing board policy, meaning that next year we will make sure we do an attendance policy or something. I think you can use this framework, but you just have to be careful of what are you measuring? What's your goal? Are you going to approve a policy, or are you going to have attendance improve?
Okay, so just don't put it
You see
in.
how one is definitely in the board's control and the other might not be? So I think that's a really good point, and we can be way more specific about what are we going to do to review board policy? Do we have some topical areas that we know we need to do next year?
These don't seem to align to me to be smart goals particularly, in any possible way.
They're not very measurable.
So,
Yeah.
How do you
so
rate yourself?
my sense is that we should come up with things that are a bit more measurable and
Yep.
specific.
Yep.
And then our administrative team would then take those goals
Well,
and work within that.
But I
right,
want to be
try
careful
move them
there,
forward. Yes.
because these are not admin team goals. Admin team has goals that they set. These are board goals. So admin team can't create a policy. Does that make sense?
Yes, to a point. So if we have goals that we want to see our district move forward in,
Yep.
let's say improving literacy,
Yep.
right, math.
Yep.
So if we have a goal to, have, I don't know, 40% of our students proficient, easy goal.
Yep.
Let's say 80% of students proficient. That can be a board goal. Within that, we're going to continue to support professional development, we're going to provide learning opportunities, we're going to see other targets on here. Would our administrative team then not work with teachers and develop policy then to support that goal?
So here's my
Is that
question.
not how that works?
Here's my question. Can the board move our proficiency levels?
Well, I mean, obviously, no, not directly.
So-
But we can implement goals for our district.
Here's the really challenging thing that we had to deal with in the past. We had goals where they did just that, and staff felt very differently about those goals than the board did.
Did they feel
Staff felt
micromanaged?
that they were imposed on them, and, oh, okay, cool, so now you're telling me how much I need to improve test scores. Okay, thanks. And I think it led to a culture here where folks were not very on board with the goals that were being set. What we do at every level is we set those goals. Our classroom teachers are setting goals. Our principals are setting goals that are going to be very specific and deal with things like that. But I think there was a big disconnect when the board goals basically said, proficiency rates will increase by X% next year. So then teachers went, well, great, well, what happens when we don't meet that goal? Whose fault is it? Ours. Rich, sorry.
When we think about, just in thinking about this, one, our responsibility, of course, is the oversight of the superintendent, in which case
You can tell the
those sorts of
superintendent.
goals could be in our assessment of the
Absolutely.
superintendent when that
100%.
comes due.
So you sit down with the superintendent and you say, these are our priorities, I need to see motion here. That's a supervision goal for the board, not a assessment goal for the board. But the board is directing the superintendent.
And I think I'm
"Hey,
agreeing
you
with
need
you
to-"
and just
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
suggesting a way
Way to do
toward
it,
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not advocating necessarily for numbers, and that was just an example I tossed out there. But
Yeah.
I do think it's within the purview of a school board to identify areas that they feel the school should move in.
Absolutely.
And
And I think,
what we have here is very vague,
well,
perhaps by
so
design.
two things. Well, these are the board's goals. These are not, these are things that were created collaboratively by the board. So the board can sit down and collaboratively come up with something different.
Right. I understand that.
And I do think there's value in them being more specific and more measurable, 100%.
That's what I'm saying.
But I do think when you start to talk about things that really are more in the purview of teachers or principals or district leaders, that needs to go through the channel of supervision and evaluation. Like Rich was saying, if the board wants to see attendance improved, great, you can have a goal about being student-focused and you want to implement a different attendance policy. Great. But if you want administrators or teachers to be doing something specific to improve attendance, you talk to
I
the
don't think
superintendent
that's-
about.
Speaking just for myself, that wasn't
Yeah.
what I was saying. I was saying
Yeah.
that we can look to move the needle forward, and then that will be then implemented through, as you just said, principals and teachers and things like that.
Well, I do still think that needs to go through supervision evaluation. I think that's a different channel than, there's going to be alignment in these things, but there are going to be some things up here that really don't.
So for instance, continue to work to support staff, because that's where I think the goal you were talking about, improve, test scores or whatever. That's going to happen by supporting staff. So what measurable goals that are within our purview could we put under there that have to do with improving student achievement? And it could be.
And we do have
Oh, sorry, I
three
see.
people online who are being super patient as we keep talking back and forth
Oh,
here.
sorry. Okay, I'll just finish this up. So I think that, but we have to remember what our role is. Our role is to enable the superintendent to implement the programs needed to improve achievement. All right, I'm done. I'm going to go in order. Gray?
Yeah, hi. I just want to back up what Rich had to say. And Brian, I understand what you're saying, but the board has a leadership role in this. And sometimes that means setting goals that the admin team has to then come up with a plan to follow. And I'm not talking about like being top heavy and super bring the hammer down. But I think attendance is like a perfect example where attendance is an issue. And it wouldn't be unreasonable to set some kind of high-level goal for the district to achieve in terms of attendance, so that administrators have like a target to shoot for. In terms of how that's implemented, the board is not going to go to the administrators and say, well, we need you to do X, Y, and Z. But on the other hand, these goals are pretty goddamn vague. And there are ways we can set specific goals that are not us trying to step in and run the schools, but at the same time are being a little bit more specific about what our expectations are. And if that ruffles a few feathers because all of a sudden people think we're trying to tell them what to do. Well, at some level, our job is to tell them what to do at a high level. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Josh?
Stephen had his hand up for me.
Oh, okay, I was just going in order on the screen. Okay, Stephen?
Yeah, I just want to say, I think there's, we might be getting mixed up about goals versus maybe what we would call vision or priorities or strategic plan or something along those lines. Like, I think this is a pretty decent document for goals that the board has for the board, not necessarily for the district. This is more of a document of how does the board function. But what I think we need to do and ought to do is get more detailed during the retreat with like a 5-year plan, kind of strategic vision and sort of thing. And we talked about it a little bit at the last summer's retreat. We started doing some of these things. For instance, we have a priority and a focus on math, and adding more to that. I don't know that we need to go as far as like 57% of the students are going to be 12% above the average level. I don't know that that's necessarily our role to come up with those sort of metrics. But I think it is important for us to, if we are actually going to take a look at something like math and math intervention, it's something that needs to have board support for many years. And so having it sometime during the summer, maybe retreat to create these long-term kind of mental health, math, areas that we want to have focus to so that we can justify backing these things up with budgets the next couple of years from a finance standpoint. That's what I'm thinking about. So yeah, to me, I see it as not necessarily the same process as this particular goals document. It's a different process that would be done in conjunction with admin and that sort of thing. That makes sense.
Thank you, Stephen. Who's next? Since Josh.
I just want to be, speaking the dead horse, but if you can't think of an action that we can take as a board that would actually move a number or do anything, it does not belong on that list. We can't control, we could write an attendance policy, but we can't do anything in the school. We can't do something. So it doesn't have, that can't be a goal for us. If you can specifically say what we can do as board members to do something, then that should be a goal that's on this list, just to be clear. And so putting prescriptive things that we have actual no power in, all it's doing is, it's not really a goal for us. I think that is the main point, is that I just want to try to reinforce that. We actually, one of the most frustrating things about being on a school board is you actually don't have as much power as you want to have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the reality.
Yeah.
And that's
If you're doing your job the way it's prescribed.
But you can adopt a policy. You can fund things,
Yes.
and money moves a lot
Right.
of things.
But that's
you can,
the goal. It's
you
not
can,
the number of, we will draft a policy
Yeah.
for improving attendance.
and you can supervise and evaluate the superintendent. And I think those are 3 very large levers that if you have a priority, if attendance is it, you have 3 large levers to pull. And if you want to be more specific on this document about how you're going to pull those levers, fantastic. I think that's great. In the past, the board hadn't wanted to be that specific. Personally, I think that's a great move.
Lenny?
Yeah, just a couple of things, and again, as Josh said, I don't want to beat the dead horse here. we did, for a period of time, have very specific goals that we, as a board, had absolutely no control over at all. And I'll use one example that's on here where we say continue to work to support staff through open communication and create strong feedback loops to inform board work. You heard about the Bookworms program tonight. It's been very successful. And part of the reason why it's been successful is because folks came to us, curriculum coordinators, Jody, teachers, and said, we think this will work. That's the feedback loop. We said, okay, we'll fund it, and we paid for it. And what you heard tonight was part of that feedback loop, telling us that it actually has worked. So we're not being specific in terms of, well, you need to raise scores X amount. Scores have been raised because that feedback loop, in this instance, and I'm just using this one instance, has come from the teachers to administration to the board, and we've supported what they wanted through finance, and that's what we do.
And I think that's a powerful example. I do think it is, because the board had a role there and the board contributed to that. Absolutely.
All right, so I'm gonna let Gray go again, and then I think the consensus is that we're gonna look at these at the retreat and see how we can make them a little bit more measurable, based on what we've done over the past year. Gray, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll keep it very brief. You know, listening to Josh and Stephen and Brian, you know, I guess I realized that I'm going to use the attendance solely as an example, not that that's even necessarily an issue, but just as an example.
Okay.
That the area where we could have, you know, a slightly more direct input is at the policy level.
Right.
As opposed to So where we can write a policy that describes our vision and what we would like, and then that is the mechanism for the superintendent and administrators and teachers, you know, to work towards. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yep.
All right. So I kind of amend my earlier comments, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Oh, go ahead, Sarah.
That was David.
David, sorry. I was just so.
Is there anything in place within the math curriculum or the math discussions that's similar to Bookworms?
No. And that's something there's been a groundswell of change in literacy the last several years. Our folks are looking around at math programs, and all the math programs, the more popular ones, tend to have pretty similar elements. So we haven't seen such a sea change in how folks think about math instruction. We haven't. What we as a district know we need to do is start supporting folks with an intervention program. It could be that when we have some interventionists and they have a little more time to do the research, that something might pop up. But, you know, Science of Reading was making national news. There's nothing making national news about math programs that we've really seen. So unfortunately, we haven't found it yet. Good question, though.
So what just as a new guy, where does what's the word that we're going to do in the summer?
The retreat.
The retreat. Where does that take place? How long does it last?
We're going to
What's it
talk
about?
about
Questions?
it.
We don't know.
We're going to talk about it. It's going to be on the agenda for the next meeting, and
Oh,
that way we'll
next
have.
meeting, you're going to
Next
tell.
meeting,
Okay.
and then we'll have a, you know, we
That's
can
fine.
plan for schedule, time, look at some ideas of ways to run that
You
retreat.
have it right here, or is it?
Well, we're going to figure that out, Dave.
Oh,
Okay? All right, so I'm going to move us along, because time is starting to pass. Committee reports. Lenny, you want to go ahead and do your thing?
Sure, I'd love to. We did meet tonight, and I have three contracts to present that was approved by the committee. just wanted to let folks know in general, two other things that we're looking at in the Personnel Committee are the roles and responsibilities of the committee, and we're also looking at exit interviews and how we can better share the information that we might get from those exit interviews with the committee itself and the full board. So that's an ongoing process. So I'll make a motion to offer a contract to Sam Brochu, 1.0 full-time equivalency, K through 12 phys ed teacher, be splitting time between Wallingford and Shrewsbury.
Is there a second?
I second.
Sarah seconds. Any discussion?
And I'll say this, and Brian, you can follow up if you'd like.
Yep.
A couple of these positions are from folks who chose not to renew their contract.
Yep.
And so we're filling those positions. Later on, by the end of the month or the beginning of next month, we'll have a list of folks who are not renewing their contract. At that point, I will be contacting them in terms of exiting.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that, Lynn.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Unanimous, okay.
Okay, number two. Again, I'd like to make a motion to offer Tom Michael a position 0.6 full-time equivalency, grade 7 through 12 social studies teacher. This is at Mill River, and again, it's a position that was filled last year, and that person is choosing not to come back. This is a position that was part social studies and part driver's ed a couple of years ago. So this is the social studies part of it, and you talked about the driver ed part of it earlier. So I make that motion to offer Tom Michael a 0.6 full-time equivalency position in 712 social studies.
I second.
Sarah seconds. Any other discussion? I think you discussed. Anybody else have any comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next, Lenny?
Yep. Next, and I'll try not to discuss it.
Oh, that's
next,
okay.
I'd like to make a motion to offer a contract to Alexa Amy, 1.0 full-time equivalency at Timoth Elementary School for kindergarten.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Dave, second. Any discussion? You want to add anything to that, Lenny? Or anybody? Or Brian?
Yeah, go ahead, Brandon.
The Tinmouth individual, this is somebody has about 9 years of experience, is currently in Rutland, and is excited about heading up the mountain to Tinmouth.
That's great. All right.
And that's also, this position is also related to the math interventionist position.
Oh, no, not this one.
Not this one.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I was wrong here.
Yeah, don't put that. Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Everybody. Okay.
And that's at our next meeting with Paul, the night of graduation. So at this point, we have not scheduled another meeting for personnel.
Okay. Thank you, Lenny. Policy, who's chair? Is that Kim?
That's me. We have not met since the last school board meeting, and I actually wasn't at that meeting, so Gray or Jody, we have on this call, feel free to jump in and missing something. But we do have some policies for second read. Is that correct, Gray?
That is correct, that is correct.
Okay, so I would like to make a motion to adopt policy A6, public participation at board meetings for second read.
Okay. Is there a
I'll
second?
second that.
Okay. Lenny, second. Discussion.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Any discussion? Anybody want to talk about? Second read means?
Second read means we've warned it in the Herald. So once it's warned in the Herald, we can officially adopt it.
Adopt it. So your vote will be to officially adopt this policy,
This new policy, or rewritten policy?
rewritten? Updated, I'm
Or
not sure.
A6 didn't change, did it?
Yeah.
Public
No.
participation?
No, I
no
think
change.
it's just the date, so,
Yeah.
okay. Any other discussion, all in favor? Okay, great, okay.
Right, and I'd like to make a motion to adopt D4, educator supervision and evaluation for second read.
Okay, second? Ned seconded. Okay, discussion? Is this another just date change?
I believe so.
Jody?
Sorry. I believe we're also renumbering this one, but I can't, if somebody else from the committee remembers correctly.
Just remembering it, yeah,
But we're not changing what it says.
correct.
Right, okay.
One of the things that we're trying to do is, when we're putting our policies together, is looking at organizing them in a more concise way than they have been in the past, so that they sort of fit into particular topic areas.
Yeah, I believe we were just renumbering for that exact purpose.
Yep. Okay, that makes sense? All right, all in favor? All right, everybody. Okay,
And then we have D5, personnel files. I'd like to make a motion for second read of that.
I'll second that.
okay. And is this another just date change
I believe so.
and number?
Yeah.
Actually, the SBA is no longer saying it's needed. So, again, if the committee wants to remind me, were we thinking of actually eliminating this one?
I don't believe so. I think we were eliminating, wasn't this the one where we were eliminating the references to statutes at the bottom of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Leaving it as the text, because the statutes change too frequently.
Good memory.
Yep.
that's right.
And the wording, and like, it would have been, the wording for when we're doing the, in like the agenda would be like rescinded.
Right.
Like we were getting rid of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. Okay, any other discussion? All right, all in favor? All right, unanimous. Okay.
You know, and I think that is something, thinking about the board goals, we talked very specifically about working more systematically to address policy, and that's been something that has been a success. We've chipped away at a really big mountain. There are a lot of 2016 policies left, but the progress made, I think, is really good.
And I have that our next meeting is Tuesday, May 13th, so next Tuesday at 5:30 at Mill River. Is that, I'm realizing though, this is the first one with me as chair. Did I need to let Rebecca know about specifics for that, Brian, to post it?
No, I took care of that, Kim. This is Jody.
Oh, Jody, you're amazing. All right. Thank you.
So Jody will do the agenda, is that for that meeting?
Sounds like
Correct.
it.
I already
Yes.
sent the agenda over.
Okay, oh, good. All right. Is that it for policy? Okay, thank you, Kim. Building and grounds, I think that's Josh, right? I can't hear you.
Yeah, I was telling myself I needed to unmute. So one of the big topics we already talked about was the stormwater runoff project. And we talked about a few projects at Mill River that may or may not come out of our budget. And then one of the things that will be seen as a full board, probably at the next meeting, will be talking about paving at Clarendon.
I think Tim's working something up to go into the Herald, because bids are really tough there, and we got to get into the Herald to satisfy bid laws, and that just will take a little while. Yeah.
And that number will give you a very good clue about how much it's going to cost.
Oh, yeah.
Green Mill River.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot more paving at Mill River.
Yeah, those are big projects.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we just discussed a little bit more. We're gonna, I have to get from Stan a better idea of what our total budget that we have for in the Buildings and Grounds Fund is. And we're just gonna keep trying to work on that 5-year plan and just keep trying to keep moving along with the 5-year plan, and then we'll have to start probably, I think, in the fall, talking about setting up actually like moving on past the projects that we have planned to start seeing if there's other projects that have come up. And the only thing that, if people could, our normal meeting time, we can't do this month. So I was wondering if people could do the Tuesday, which is the 27th at 5. And you don't have to decide right now, but if you could shoot me an email, that would be great. If it works, if we can get enough quorum.
It works for me.
Works for me.
Same.
At what time? 5?
Yeah, that would be great.
I have a buildings and grounds question. Is it okay I'm just curious, because I hear you with the paving stuff, and I was just wondering if something like the repair, just for like the exit lanes of Mill River, like is that something we can do sooner and like on our own just to patch that area? You'll discuss that.
They are doing that currently. The challenge is in rainy season, they have to kind of keep after it. They were doing cold patching until just recently, so they'll keep at it as they can.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Yeah. And now, in theory now, we can actually move forward with looking at the paving for the full of it. So hopefully we'll be able to figure that out in a timely manner. But
That would be a big one. It might come down to a conversation of repaving the loop and that's it, because doing it all might be too much.
right, and it's one of those things where like when we first started the conversation, we were like, oh, should we be doing Mill River and Clarendon, and like should we try? And the reality is the project, it's still not big enough.
And Clarendon,
to get cost savings from it, so it's like that weird size.
and I do think Clarendon is quite a bit worse, unfortunately.
It's bad. Yeah.
And we did and for clarity, like I did, ask to see like, are there other options besides pave? Like, are there other alternatives that we could use that would be cost savings or anything like that? And it turned out it was basically a wash. So then that means, so I think we had enough for quorum. So then our next meeting will be on May 27th at 5.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Community engagement, Sarah?
So our last meeting was April 16th at Wallingford Elementary. There was a lot of people there, actually. A lot of people interested in the 50th anniversary, but lots of people wanted to speak about the cell phone policy. Overwhelming support for restricting cell phone use. I didn't hear any voices otherwise, so that was really nice to see all those people there. The next meeting is May 21. It's not going to be like a normal meeting. Thank you, Carol, for arranging that. It's going to be a opportunity to meet with our state representatives. At this point, David Weeks, Terry Williams, and Brian Colomar have all said they would be there, as well as either in person or remotely, as well as David Bosch, Kevin Winter, and Chris Pritchard. Tom Burdett has not responded to 2 offers, so he probably won't be there. So that'll get advertised in the Front Porch Forum and other medias, so I expect a lot of people will be present for that from the public.
Time and place?
It's going to happen here, 6 to 7.
Thank you.
We have enough chairs.
And there should be a lot of people, probably.
And what day is that?
That's on May 21st.
It's before the regular board
Yeah,
meeting.
before the board meeting.
If we expect a lot of people, we'd have chairs.
We should get more chairs.
21st?
We can work on doing some kind of stadium-ish seating over
Yeah,
here without
okay.
it.
And some of
Yeah,
those
we'll-
reps
we'll-
said they would actually come
yeah.
in person.
Yeah,
There was some question about that.
We'll pile as many chairs as we can in here.
Yeah,
Okay.
we will move them in. All right. And, okay, so I think that's all set. Negotiations?
We met yesterday, and we are appreciative of the association continuing to work with us, and we will be meeting again in 2 weeks.
Any questions about that?
I just want
Okay,
to note that the times, I'm on that committee technically, but the times don't work for me. I'm still at my actual job at that time of day, so I don't think I'm gonna be able to make it if it continues at that time. I know I'll be late into the show anyway, but just want to acknowledge that.
That's totally understandable. And, luckily, it ends, and then by the time we have,
You get a year off.
reorganization for committees, we can make sure that people can do it,
Sounds good.
okay. Pay orders, Stephen.
Yes, we have payroll warrants. April 16th, in the amount of $7,571.78. April 25th, in the amount of $635,304.32. And May 1st, in the amount of $7,579.18, for a total of $650,455.28. I'll make a motion to accept these payroll warrants as read.
Seconded.
Ned, second.
Any discussion? All in favor? All right. And payable warrants, accounts payable warrants. We have a general fund in the amount of $348,768.13. General fund in the amount of $19,820.18. ASP for $2,009. Lunch in the amount of $4,047.13 for a total there of $374,635.53. And we have student activity for Mill River for $6,585.57. And from Shrewsbury in the amount of $450 for a total of $7,035.57. I'll make a motion to accept these payable warrants as read.
Ned, second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor? We haven't had a meeting in a little bit of time here, but we have our next meeting on May 29th at 5 p.m. We'll be getting some discussion of how this legislative session will affect budgeting for next year and some strategy for fiscal year 27 budgeting. I think we also will be discussing the request for a new position. Is that true, Brian?
Yep.
Am I saying that correctly?
Yep.
For fiscal year 26, so current fiscal year discussion as well. I think that's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay, any other legal business?
I just have one, I just wanted to make a comment. It was that the school board member page, we all, there's a bunch of people that don't have pictures, and a little bio is needed for a bunch of people. So if we could do that as a board mini goal of getting that page updated, that would be great.
Who do we,
And Josh, what's the mechanism if you have a picture and a bio?
Well, I don't know that business, but
You can,
It was Rebecca. I assume you could send it to
Warren.
Send it to Rebecca.
Rebecca.
You can,
Okay.
yeah, you can send it to any of us. If you can't do that, you can talk to us, and Connie will take your photo for your badge, too. I'm going to resend an email to folks that's got some information about that and about some other relevant things, just so you have it near the top of your inbox as you're thinking about that reminder Josh gave you.
That has some basic criteria for the bio.
You know, we really don't have criteria for that. The best you could do is look at everybody else's
Okay.
and line
Ours-
up with theirs.
Ours
Yeah.
tend to run along in
Yeah, not
academia,
10
so-
pages.
Not 2 pages.
Mine is long. All right.
We'll edit it if it's too long.
Yeah,
If it's
mine
too
is-
short, we might add to it too, so be careful.
Okay, any other legal business? As I said, we will have retreat planning on the next agenda, so.
Yep.
So, agenda building, retreat.
Retreat planning, how about that?
Perfect.
The next thing that we'd have in our schedule would be a F28 student wellness update. That's a policy that calls for an annual update, and it's that time of year. We would typically do pre-K, but trying to schedule with Sarah Bolster to do pre-K, we're going to bump that to June. So I might switch that around with 5-year facilities plan, just to have a reasonable agenda for the night, if that sounds good to folks. If we didn't do 5-year facilities plan, we'd do it at our June meeting. So 3 things:
Well,
wellness, facilities, retreat.
and maybe, I guess we could do it during the committee reports, but follow up on what we learned from the, hopefully all these representatives will
Oh,
show up
okay.
and,
Takeaways.
Yeah,
So
during your
maybe
community
put that on the
engagement.
agenda, takeaways from the,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know if we need that as a separate agenda item.
I think doing it under community engagement makes sense.
Okay.
I think it does.
Great that you got that much participation though, that's cool.
Ray?
so
You have
when that
something?
comes up, bring up what they said in a nutshell, sort of.
Yeah, I guess, actually, Kim, maybe you could help me with this. I was thinking more about how are we going to respond to whatever's coming down the pike? Is that something, again,
do we
that
just
we could do
listen?
during the retreat, or should we, that's why I guess we could discuss that during the retreat discussion as well.
You mean when I asked for a special
Yeah.
meeting, Carol?
Yes, maybe you could talk about what you were thinking. We have a few minutes.
Yeah, I just didn't know if we needed to find more time as a board to be able to all understand what's coming out of the state legislation right now and like the changes happening. I don't know that we would fit it into regular board meeting, so I thought maybe we could have a special meeting. I know it's changing though, so you
Yeah.
know maybe it doesn't have to happen until the summer.
So I would have 2 questions. One is going to be, what's the purpose? And is it going to be, do you want to have a meeting to get up to speed so you can call up your reps to advocate? Then you better do that quickly. If it's 2, we want to figure out where this stuff is landing and how we as a district are going to navigate it, then yeah, you're going to be talking mid to late summer.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was thinking more same page to navigate. I was feeling like we were a little behind the 8 ball in the
Yep.
advocating view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so that we're not reinventing the wheel, does Vermont School Board Association put those things out? And
Yep.
wouldn't we be wise to wait for sort of a summary on that?
Yeah, and they just gave a good summary update of the differences between where the House left the bill, I think it's 454, H454, and what the Senate has done. If I were to give you my 30-second, let me get you up to speed so you can advocate, it would be, I don't see the Senate or the House agreeing, and I think there's going to be a veto. So I don't know that your advocacy right now does a lot. I have not seen this much advocacy from the VSBA, the VSA, and the NEA in years. So and now you throw into the mix, you've got Rural Schools Collaborative, and you've got the Friends of Vermont Education Group. You have a lot of groups advocating for a lot of things, and none of them are advocating for the same thing. So I think it's been hard to,
Sort out the noise.
yeah. That was maybe 45 seconds, sorry.
Okay, Gray? Did you have a comment?
I do. I'm not sure exactly how the order of these things is supposed to work, but I know the policy committee is meeting next week, and we're going to be discussing possible options for a cell phone.
Yep.
And it seems like we ought to then, whatever comes out of the policy ought to then become, because it's a consequential issue, ought to come before the full board. And I guess the only thing I don't know about is like whether it's supposed to go out for first read before it goes to the board, or how that works. But, I mean, in my mind, whatever we decide at the policy committee level next week ought to then be brought to the board for discussion, before it really goes any further. Because, like I said, it's a big issue. I'd like to see everybody on board with whatever it is that we decide.
Yeah, that's a great procedural question, and Gray, the first read of that would be it going to the full board. Nothing else would be happening until the full board gave the thumbs up on that first read. So if policy is ready for that, awesome, we'll do first read at the next board meeting.
Okay, so that if we vote on first read for a particular policy, that will put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Yep, perfect.
Okay, great. That was my concern. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Lenny?
Yeah, just a quickie. I get concerned, and please keep in mind, I don't want us to keep putting things off till the retreat in the summer.
Yeah, it fills up fast.
Suddenly, I mean, there's no way you're gonna have enough time at a retreat to do that. I mean, the retreats, and I'll speak to what David asked earlier, tends to be on a Saturday, tends to be a little bit more than half a day. And that's about it. So if I like Kim's idea of having another meeting.
Yep.
Right.
Of talking specifically about legislative impacts and not necessarily adding that onto our plate at the retreat.
Okay.
I just want to remind us.
And that's what we're gonna, that we'll hash that out at the next meeting.
I understand that, but I just want people to be aware.
And something else I'd remind folks, be thinking about your summer board meetings and what you're going to fill those with, because your late June is a really light meeting. Your July meeting had only ever been, we said, board goals. So those are two meetings that you've got a lot of space in. Your August meetings, you have a lot of space in too. It's not until we get to September that I have a lot of things added into those meetings. So if an item pops up that makes sense to dedicate most of your first or your second July meeting to, so be thinking about spreading some of those out over the summer as it, makes sense. Does that help a little too? So that it's not just a retreat that you can start nailing these things to.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Quick question for Jody. Would you be able to give us copies of other districts' policies before the meeting of our next policy committee meeting on May 16th, so we could review them before the meeting?
Yes, so I've already given those to Rebecca, and they should be going out with the agenda under Mr.
Awesome. Thank you.
If there's
Great, we have an agenda.
nothing else, I think, executive session, no.
Nothing ever worked.
All right, I
I'll
think.
move to adjourn.
Great.
All right, let's move to adjourn.
All right.
All
Okay,
right.
excellent. Thank you, everybody.